Have you ever faced a moment so profoundly shocking, so utterly devastating, that it shatters your entire perception of reality? A moment where the life you believed you were living, the person you thought you knew, crumbles into a pile of ash and lies right before your eyes? Imagine standing on the precipice of a beautiful future, a new chapter of motherhood unfolding, only for that hope to be brutally ripped away by the most intimate form of betrayal. That's where our story begins. A story not just about infidelity, but about the explosive power of a woman scorned, about strategic revenge and the ultimate reclamation of self-worth. Today, we're diving deep into a narrative that gripped the internet, a story of a pregnant wife who publicly announced her divorce, exposing her cheating billionaire husband in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. This isn't just a tale of marital breakdown, it's a masterclass in turning victimhood into empowerment, a dramatic illustration of how personal ethics can collide with corporate reputation, and a stark reminder that actions, no matter how privileged the perpetrator, always have consequences. So buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride through deceit, power plays, and an unforgettable journey of defiance. Our protagonist, Simone, was a woman who seemingly had it all. Married to Marcus Thompson, a self-made billionaire and the charismatic CEO of Thompson Industries, she lived a life of luxury, prestige, and what she believed was a rock-solid partnership. They were the epitome of a power couple, a testament to hard work and shared ambition. Simone wasn't just a trophy wife. She was an integral part of Marcus's success, having poured her own intellect, energy, and unwavering support into building his empire from the ground up. She was the one managing their household, attending crucial business functions, offering strategic advice, and often being the quiet strength behind the roaring success. For 3 years, she had dedicated herself to their shared dream, enduring late nights, solo dinners, and countless sacrifices, all with the faith that they were building a future together. A future that now, more than ever, included a family. The air in Marcus's lavish office was thick with the stench of betrayal. Simone had arrived, heart pounding with excitement, a tiny secret tucked away in her purse, a positive pregnancy test. She envisioned Marcus's face lighting up, his arms embracing her, their shared joy overflowing. Instead, what greeted her was a scene ripped straight from a daytime drama, only far more visceral and sickening. The silk curtains, meant to exude opulence, now seemed to draw a shroud over the sordid tableau. Papers lay scattered on the mahogany desk, but her eyes were fixated on a splash of crimson, a woman's red dress, haphazardly discarded on the floor next to her husband's silk tie. The sounds emanating from behind the massive leather executive chair were unmistakable, guttural, and utterly horrifying. Not the tender whispers of love, but the crude, unmistakable sounds of infidelity. It wasn't morning sickness that made Simone's stomach lurch. It was the sickening realization that her entire marriage, her entire reality, was a meticulously crafted lie. The pregnancy test in her purse, those 2 delicate pink lines, felt like a cruel cosmic joke, mocking her innocence and hope. She stood frozen in the doorway, a silent observer to the destruction of her world. This wasn't just an affair. This was a desecration of their shared space, their shared dreams, happening in the very office she had helped him build. It was a profound violation, not just of her trust, but of the sanctity of their partnership. "Marcus," she managed, her voice a fragile whisper, barely audible above the rustling and muffled giggles behind the chair. The illicit movement stopped abruptly. A woman's nervous laugh, the telltale rustle of fabric, and then Marcus's face emerged, flushed and disheveled, his shirt half-buttoned, eyes wide with a mixture of panic and guilt. Following him, with the practiced ease of someone who had navigated this scenario many times before, was Rebecca, his secretary, smoothly adjusting her skirt. The sheer audacity, the brazen carelessness of it all, was a second slap in the face. Marcus stammered, "Simone, this isn't what it looks like." The words hung in the air, a pathetic attempt to extinguish a fire that had already consumed everything. Simone's hand instinctively went to her stomach, a protective gesture over the child growing within her, utterly oblivious to the depth of their father's treachery. The sheer injustice of it burned through her. Here she was, carrying their child, nurturing their future, while he was indulging in casual affairs with his employees. It was a stark juxtaposition of devotion and depravity. Her voice, initially small, began to swell with a cold, righteous fury. "Really?" she challenged, each word a hammer blow. "Because it looks exactly like you're having sex with your secretary in the office where I helped you build this company from nothing." The accusation was precise, cutting through his flimsy excuses. Rebecca, recognizing the inferno she had stepped into, quickly gathered her belongings, eyes darting away from Simone's icy gaze. "I should go, Mr. Thompson," she mumbled. "Yes, you should," Simone affirmed, her tone devoid of emotion. "And Rebecca, clean out your desk. You won't be coming back." Marcus, finding a semblance of his usual authority, buttoned his shirt and stood defensively. "You can't fire her. This company is half mine, remember?" The arrogance of his statement, after being caught red-handed, was breathtaking. Simone met his gaze, her voice dripping with scorn. "Community property, Marcus. Or did you forget that along with your wedding vows?" Rebecca, sensing the shifting tectonic plates of power, slipped away, leaving husband and wife alone in the wreckage of their marriage. The silence that followed was deafening, filled with unspoken accusations and years of suppressed pain. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Simone once found endearing, now appearing utterly pathetic in its self-pity. "How long?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the silence. He started to explain, to plead, but she cut him off. "How long, Marcus?" His inability to meet her eyes spoke volumes. 6 months. The number struck her like a physical blow, reverberating through her very core. 6 months, the exact period they had been trying for a baby. While she meticulously tracked her cycle, took prenatal vitamins, and envisioned their future family, he had been systematically betraying her, their vows, and everything they had built. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a sustained campaign of deceit. Was it just Rebecca? The question hung heavy in the air, laden with fear and dread. The silence that stretched between them was more damning than any confession, filling with the answers she instinctively knew, but didn't want to hear. "Marcus, was it just Rebecca?" Her voice was tight, on the verge of breaking. Finally he spoke, and each word was another twist of the knife. There were others. Simone closed her eyes, the world tilting precariously beneath her feet. She gripped the doorframe, trying to steady herself against the tidal wave of revelations. All those business trips, the late-night meetings, the weekend conferences, all meticulously crafted lies to cover a life of promiscuity. Who else? The question was a desperate cry for clarity in the swirling chaos. "Does it matter?" he countered, his voice laden with exasperation. "It matters to me!" Simone retorted, her voice rising. Marcus sank into his chair, suddenly appearing much older than his 35 years, defeated and exposed. Sarah from accounting, Jennifer from the marketing firm, a few others. Each name was a fresh wound, a new layer of betrayal. Sarah, who had organized Simone's surprise birthday party, pretending to be a friend while secretly sleeping with her husband. Jennifer, who had complimented Simone's dress at the company Christmas party, gushing about her own dreams of starting a family, all while being one of Marcus's conquests. The hypocrisy was soul-crushing. "How many others?" Simone pressed, her voice barely a whisper, a nauseating bile rising in her throat. "I don't know. Maybe 7 or 8. 8 women. 8 distinct betrayals. While Simone was the picture of a supportive wife, managing their home, believing in his dreams, nurturing their future, he was systematically dismantling it, one affair at a time. "Why?" The word was a raw whisper, barely escaping her lips. Marcus finally looked up, and for a fleeting moment, she thought she saw a flicker of regret in his eyes. "I don't know. The stress of the business, the pressure. You were always so perfect, so put together. These women, they just wanted fun. No expectations, no pressure to be the perfect husband." "Perfect?" Simone laughed, but the sound was hollow, devoid of humor. "I was trying to be a good wife. I was trying to build a life with you." His platitudes of, "I know and I'm sorry. God, Simone, I'm so sorry, but this doesn't have to change anything. We can work through this. I'll end it with all of them. I'll do whatever it takes," were met with a chilling resolve. Simone reached into her purse, pulling out the pregnancy test, the symbol of their once hopeful future, now a weapon of truth. She placed it squarely on his desk, precisely where Rebecca's dress had lain moments before. Marcus stared at it, his face draining of all color. "Is that?" "I'm pregnant, Marcus. I came here to surprise you with the news that we're having a baby." Her voice broke on the last word, the last vestige of her innocent joy shattering. He stood, reaching for her, a desperate plea in his eyes. "Simone, this is wonderful. This changes everything. We're going to be parents. I'll change, I promise. I'll be the husband you deserve, the father our child deserves." But Simone recoiled from his outstretched hands, a profound sense of clarity washing over her. "No." "What do you mean, no?" he demanded, confusion warring with fear on his face. "I mean, no, this doesn't change anything. No, you won't change. And no, you won't get the chance to hurt our child the way you've hurt me." He tried to dismiss her, to gaslight her, to blame her emotions on her pregnancy. "You can't be serious. You're upset. You're emotional because of the pregnancy hormones." The audacity of it ignited a fresh spark of defiance within her. "Don't you dare blame this on hormones!" Simone's voice was deadly quiet, yet it resonated with an iron will. "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 3 years. All those times I made excuses for you, believed your lies, trusted you when my instinct said something was wrong. I was the fool, but I'm not anymore." "What are you saying?" he asked, a dawning horror in his eyes. "I'm saying I want a divorce." The words hung in the air, definitive and irreversible. Marcus's face cycled through shock, disbelief, and finally, anger. "You don't mean that. You're just hurt. We can go to counseling, work through this. Think about what you're throwing away. Think about our life, our home, the company we built together." Simone cut him off, her voice laden with bitter irony. "The company you built on lies while I supported you. The home where I waited alone while you were with other women. The life that was apparently not enough for you." She picked up the pregnancy test, returning it to her purse, a silent vow that this child would not be tainted by his deception. "I've thought about it plenty, Marcus, and I've made my decision." He pleaded, "Simone, please, I love you. I made mistakes, but I love you." Her response was chillingly calm. "If this is love, I don't want it." As she turned to leave, he hurled one last desperate threat, a reminder of his financial control. "You can't just walk away. You signed a prenup. You'll get nothing if you leave me." Simone paused at the doorway, turning back to him, and for the first time since the discovery, she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, but one filled with cold, calculated intent. "Oh, Marcus, you really don't know me at all, do you?" She patted her purse, her eyes glinting with fierce resolve. "I'm not walking away. I'm going to destroy you." And with that, she left him sitting in his opulent office, surrounded by the wreckage of his lies, finally beginning to comprehend that his perfect wife was about to become his worst nightmare. The drive home was a blur. Simone sat in her car in the parking garage for 20 long minutes, her hands trembling on the steering wheel, replaying the horrifying scene in Marcus's office over and over. Rebecca's red dress on the floor, an indelible stain on her memory. Her beautiful home, a sprawling colonial with manicured lawns and rose bushes she had painstakingly planted, now felt like a gilded cage, a monument to a lie. The irony of its magazine-perfect appearance, representing a successful marriage, was a bitter pill to swallow. Inside, everything was as she had left it that morning. Marcus's abandoned breakfast dishes, the coffee mug with lipstick stains that weren't hers, a detail she had somehow overlooked or rationalized away. The throw pillow she had fluffed, trying to create a perfect sanctuary for his return, now mocked her efforts. She walked upstairs to their bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed where just 3 nights ago she had made love to the man who was simultaneously making love to other women. The thought was sickening. Who could she call? Her mother, with her inevitable "I told you so," having never approved of Marcus. Her sister, who would fly in from California, ready to cause a dramatic scene. Her best friend, Lisa, would offer wine and sympathy, but Simone needed more than comfort. She needed a weapon. Instead, she opened her laptop. Her fingers, though still shaking, typed divorce lawyers. The initial websites were a blur of promises, fair settlements, quick resolutions. But then she found him. Robert Chin, renowned as the divorce attorney to the wealthy, and more importantly, the vindictive. His website didn't promise fairness, it promised results. This was precisely what Simone needed. She called his office, her voice trembling slightly as she spoke to the assistant, Patricia. "I need to speak with Mr. Chin about a divorce. It's urgent." Patricia's polite refusal, citing Chin being booked for weeks, was met with Simone's steely resolve. "Tell him it's about Marcus Thompson of Thompson Industries. Tell him I'm the wife, and I have information that could destroy him." The immediate pause on the other end, followed by "please hold," confirmed she had struck a chord. 2 minutes later, Chin's voice, sharp and commanding, came on the line. "Mrs. Thompson, this is Robert Chin. I think we should meet." An hour later, Simone sat in Chin's downtown office, a sleek glass tower overlooking the very city Marcus believed he owned. Chin was younger than she expected, perhaps 40, with piercing eyes and an immaculately tailored suit. After she recounted the day's harrowing events, he cut straight to the chase. "Tell me about the prenup." Simone handed him a copy, her voice laced with bitterness. "I signed it 3 years ago. I was in love and stupid." Chin read through the document, his expression impassive. "This is comprehensive. He really covered his bases." Simone's heart sank. "So, I get nothing? If you file for a standard divorce, you'd get very little. The prenup is ironclad." He looked up, his gaze intense. "But you said something on the phone about information that could destroy him." Simone, who had spent the drive over carefully cultivating her strategy, looked him dead in the eye. "Marcus built his company on investor money, big money from people who care about their reputations and their investments. What do you think happens to those investments when they find out the CEO is a serial cheater who's been having affairs with employees?" Chin leaned back, a flicker of interest in his eyes. "That depends. Do you have proof?" "I caught him in the act today, but that's not enough, is it?" she asked, her voice tinged with frustration. "Not for what you want to do," he confirmed. "But it's a start. Tell me, did you ever have access to his phone, his computer, his credit card statements?" A light bulb went off in Simone's mind. "I manage our household accounts. I see the credit card bills." She thought about all those questionable charges she had brushed aside, accepted his flimsy explanations for expensive dinners that were supposedly business meetings, hotel rooms during work trips, jewelry she never received, gifts for other women. "Do you still have access to these statements?" Chin pressed. "Yes, everything goes to our shared email account." For the first time, a grim smile touched Chin's lips. "Mrs. Thompson, I think we can work together, but I need you to understand something. What you're talking about isn't just a divorce. You want to wage war." Simone met his gaze, her resolve hardened. "He started this war when he cheated on his pregnant wife. I'm just going to finish it." "Good," Chin affirmed, a predatory gleam in his eye. "Here's what we're going to do." For the next 2 hours, Chin meticulously laid out a strategy that was a chilling blend of legal maneuvering and psychological warfare. They would quietly gather evidence, building an airtight case of infidelity, misuse of company funds, and a hostile work environment. They would identify Marcus's key business partners and investors, understanding that reputation was their most guarded asset. Most importantly, they would choose the perfect moment to strike, a moment of maximum impact. "There's one more thing," Chin said as their meeting concluded. "I looked into Thompson Industries before you arrived. They're hosting their annual investor gala next week. Marcus will be giving a presentation to all his major backers." A cold satisfaction settled in Simone's chest. "So?" "So that's when you're going to announce your divorce publicly, in front of everyone who matters to his business." Simone felt a jolt of power. "Can we do that legally?" "Oh, yes," Chin replied with a shark-like grin. "And the beauty is, you won't be violating the prenup at all. You'll just be exercising your right to free speech at a public event." Chin handed her his card, his instructions clear. "Go home, Mrs. Thompson. Act normal. Don't let him suspect anything. And start gathering evidence. You have 1 week to build a case that will bring down an empire." Simone drove home, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Powerful. Marcus's car was in the driveway when she arrived, a testament to his premature return home, likely reeling from the day's events. He rushed to meet her at the door, a desperate eagerness in his eyes. "Simone, thank God you're home. We need to talk." She looked at him, truly looked at him. He was handsome, undeniably so, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of confidence that came from a lifetime of never being told no. But now, beneath the polished facade, she saw the true Marcus, the weakness, the selfishness, the entitlement. "We do need to talk," she agreed, her voice carefully neutral. "But first, I need to lie down. The baby—" Concern, or perhaps just panic, flashed across his face. "Are you okay? Should I call the doctor?" "I'm fine, just tired." She touched his arm, forcing herself not to recoil. "Can we talk tonight, after dinner?" Relief flooded his features. "Of course, I'll cook. I'll make your favorite." "That would be nice," she said, a chilling premonition of his impending downfall. She went upstairs, leaving him in the kitchen, a man oblivious to the storm brewing around him, preparing a meal with the naive enthusiasm of someone who believed he could mend a shattered marriage with pasta and wine. From her bedroom window, she could see him through the glass doors, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator, whistling a tuneless melody. If only he knew what she was really planning. Simone opened her laptop and began the meticulous process of downloading 3 years' worth of credit card statements. Each charge, meticulously documented, began to tell a story Marcus had desperately tried to conceal. Expensive restaurants on nights he claimed to be working late, weekend hotel stays during supposed business trips, jewelry purchases she had never seen, gifts for his parade of mistresses. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Making your favorite chicken Alfredo with extra Parmesan. Love you." She stared at the message for a long time, the blatant hypocrisy burning in her vision, before typing back a single, chilling response. "Can't wait." It wasn't a lie. She truly couldn't wait for next week, when she would watch his world burn down around him. The grand ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel sparkled under crystal chandeliers, filled with the laughter and chatter of the city's elite, people who had never worried about money, only about reputation and power. Simone stood at the edge of the crowd, a vision in a black cocktail dress that gracefully concealed her barely-there pregnancy bump, making her dark skin glow under the warm lights. Black. She had chosen it deliberately, for mourning the death of her marriage, the death of her innocence, and the death of the life she thought she had. Marcus, oblivious to the impending cataclysm, stood near the stage, radiating success, surrounded by investors and business partners, playing the role of the infallible CEO to perfection. He wore his lucky cufflinks, the ones she had given him for their first anniversary. The sight of them, a symbol of their past love, now made her stomach churn with revulsion. "Mrs. Thompson?" She turned to find Patricia, Chin's assistant, discreetly disguised as a server. "Mr. Chin wanted me to give you this." Patricia handed her a small device, disguised as a sleek pen. "It's recording everything. Legal backup for what you're about to do." Simone clipped it to her dress, the tiny recording device a silent witness to the unfolding drama. "Is he here, Mr. Chin?" "Yes, by the bar. He's the one in the navy suit." Simone spotted him easily. Chin blended seamlessly into the crowd of wealthy attendees, save for the satisfied, almost predatory, expression he wore while watching Marcus work the room. "How many media outlets?" Simone asked, her voice calm, controlled. 12 reporters, 3 camera crews, and someone from the Business Journal. They think they're here to cover Thompson Industries' expansion announcement. Patricia smiled grimly. They're going to get a much better story. The past week had been the longest of Simone's life, a masterclass in emotional compartmentalization. She had played the part of the reconciling wife flawlessly, even sharing their bed with Marcus, all while systematically gathering damning evidence of his betrayals. The credit card statements had yielded a goldmine, dozens of charges at luxury restaurants, hotels, and jewelry stores that painted an undeniable picture of systematic cheating. But the real breakthrough had come when she accessed Marcus's laptop. He had been astonishingly careless with his passwords, using her birthday for everything. A grotesque irony. His email archives contained 3 years' worth of explicit conversations with his affairs, including nude photos and detailed plans for secret rendezvous. The worst part wasn't even the sexual content. It was how he talked about her, his wife, to these women. "My wife is so boring," he had written to Jennifer. "She just wants to stay home and talk about babies. You're so much more fun." To Rebecca, he'd sneered, "Simone thinks she's so perfect. She has no idea what she's missing." Each message had felt like a physical blow, a fresh twist of the knife, yet paradoxically, they had only hardened her resolve. Marcus didn't just cheat on her. He mocked her, belittled her, to his mistresses. He wasn't just a philanderer. He was a narcissist who thrived on debasing those closest to him. "Ladies and gentlemen," the event coordinator's voice boomed through the speakers, "please take your seats. Mr. Thompson will begin his presentation in 5 minutes." Simone gracefully made her way to a table near the front, smiling and greeting people she had known for years, Mrs. Davidson, whose husband had been an early investor in Marcus's company, the Johnsons, who owned half the commercial real estate downtown, the Williamses, who treated every social event as a prime networking opportunity. These were the pillars of their social and business world, people who had welcomed her into their exclusive circle because she was Marcus Thompson's wife. Tonight, they would learn exactly what that title truly meant. Marcus took the stage to enthusiastic applause, a picture of confident success in his custom-tailored tuxedo, every inch the self-made billionaire. The presentation screen lit up behind him with impressive charts, showcasing Thompson Industries' exponential growth over the past 5 years. "Friends, investors, colleagues," Marcus began, his voice smooth and resonant, carrying easily through the sophisticated sound system. 5 years ago, Thompson Industries was just an idea. Tonight, I'm proud to announce that we're expanding into 3 new markets with projected revenues of over $2 billion. More applause, a palpable buzz of excitement rippling through the room. Simone watched the faces around her, excitement, greed, admiration. These people saw Marcus as a golden boy, a Midas touch who could make them all richer. For 20 minutes, Marcus dazzled them with projected earnings, intricate market analyses, and ambitious expansion plans. He was a natural performer, working the room with the practiced ease of a conductor leading an orchestra. When he called for questions, hands shot up around the ballroom. "Mr. Thompson," asked Helen Morrison from the Business Journal, her voice crisp, "what role will your wife play in the company's expansion?" Marcus's eyes found Simone in the crowd. He smiled, that charming, disarming smile that had once made her feel like the luckiest woman alive, but now merely an empty facade. "My wife, Simone, has been my partner in every sense," he declared, his voice full of feigned affection. "She supported me through the difficult early years, and I'm excited to share this success with her." The spotlight found Simone, and she stood up gracefully, a serene smile on her face. This was it, the moment she had painstakingly planned for an entire week. "Actually," she said, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the pleasant murmurs, "I have an announcement of my own." A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. This wasn't on the program. Marcus looked momentarily confused, but his smile remained, probably thinking she was about to thank him, or perhaps share the exciting pregnancy news. "As Marcus mentioned," Simone continued, her voice resonating with newfound authority, "I've been his partner through the building of Thompson Industries. I've supported him through late nights and weekend work. I've managed our home so he could focus on business. I've been the perfect corporate wife." Nods of approval from the unsuspecting crowd. Simone felt the weight of their attention, 200 pairs of eyes, all hanging on her every word. "But tonight," she paused, letting the anticipation build, "I want to share some news that I think will interest his investors and business partners." Marcus's smile was starting to look strained, a mask barely concealing his unease. "Simone, maybe we should—" "I'm pregnant," she'd announced, and the crowd erupted in delighted applause. 12 weeks along with our first child." Marcus beamed, relief flooding his face. He thought this was good news, something that would make them look like the perfect power couple, reinforcing his image. But his triumph was short-lived. "But I'm also filing for divorce." The applause died instantly, replaced by a stunned silence so profound that Simone could hear her own heartbeat echoing in the vast ballroom. "You see," she continued, her voice gaining strength, "while I was being the perfect wife, Marcus was having affairs with at least 8 different women, including his secretary, his accountant, and employees from the marketing firm that handles Thompson Industries publicity." Gasps echoed through the room. Camera flashes exploded, a flurry of light as the media, sensing a story far grander than a mere business expansion, sprang into action. Marcus stumbled towards the microphone, a desperate plea in his voice. "Simone, you're upset. You're emotional." "I'm not emotional, Marcus. I'm factual." Simone pulled out her phone, holding it aloft like a shield, or perhaps a sword. "I have 3 years' worth of evidence. Credit card statements showing expensive dinners with mistresses, hotel receipts from supposed business trips, explicit emails describing what you did with these women while I was home planning our future." The crowd erupted into chaos. Investors were murmuring furiously to each other, their faces a mixture of shock, anger, and dawning realization. Phones appeared throughout the room, people beginning to record while reporters scribbled furiously. "Mr. Thompson," a voice from the back called out, "is this true?" Marcus gripped the podium, his knuckles white, his polished facade cracking under the immense pressure. "These are private matters between my wife and me." "Actually, they're not," Simone cut in, her voice unwavering. "When you use company credit cards to pay for your affairs, when you have sex with employees in your office, when you create a hostile work environment by sleeping with subordinates, that becomes a matter of public interest for your investors." Mrs. Davidson, a formidable and highly respected investor, stood up abruptly and headed for the exit, her face a mask of disgust. Other investors quickly followed suit, the carefully orchestrated evening collapsing in real time. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus tried desperately to regain control, "my personal life doesn't affect my ability to run a successful company." "Doesn't it?" Simone's voice sliced through his protests. "Because I have emails where you call me boring to your mistresses, where you mock the idea of starting a family, where you describe Thompson Industries as your playground for meeting women. Is that the kind of leadership these investors are backing?" The exodus accelerated, entire tables of people leaving, some looking disgusted, others simply embarrassed to be associated with the unfolding spectacle. "Mrs. Thompson," a reporter called out, "will you be seeking alimony?" "I'll be seeking what I'm entitled to under the law," Simone replied, her gaze firm. "Which includes exposing the truth about how Marcus Thompson treats the people who trust him, whether that's his wife, his employees, or his investors." Marcus abandoned the microphone and jumped down from the stage, pushing frantically through the dwindling crowd towards her. "Simone, stop this! You're destroying everything we built!" She looked at him calmly, cameras capturing every raw moment of his humiliation. "I'm not destroying anything, Marcus. I'm just telling the truth. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do." Security, Chin's doing, she realized, appeared almost instantly, blocking Marcus from getting too close. "This isn't over," Marcus snarled, his polished facade completely gone, replaced by raw desperation. "You signed a prenup. You'll get nothing." Simone smiled, the same cold, knowing smile she had given him in his office a week ago. "We'll see about that." She turned and walked out of the ballroom, leaving behind the wreckage of Marcus's reputation and the shocked faces of 200 people who had just witnessed the spectacular fall of a golden boy. In the lobby, Chin appeared at her side, a silent sentinel. "How do you feel?" he asked, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "Free," she said simply, and for the first time in years, she meant it. Marcus stood alone on the stage, a solitary figure as the last of the investors filed out of the ballroom. The projection screen behind him still displayed his optimistic revenue forecasts, now appearing like a cruel, mocking joke. Hotel staff began to move around him, clearing abandoned drinks and programs, treating him like inanimate furniture they had to work around. His phone, moments before a silent bystander, now began to ring incessantly, a harbinger of the storm. The first call was from James Peterson, his biggest investor, his voice laced with unbridled fury. "Marcus, what the hell was that?" "James, let me explain," Marcus began, but Peterson cut him off. "Explain what? That you've been using company funds to cheat on your pregnant wife? I've got $50 million invested in your company, and I just watched you get publicly humiliated by your own wife." The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone in disbelief. Peterson, his mentor, the man who had believed in Thompson Industries when it was just a nascent idea, was gone. The phone rang again. Another powerful voice, Sarah Mitchell from the pension fund. "Mr. Thompson, we need to schedule an emergency meeting to discuss our investment terms." "Sarah, this is a personal matter." "Is it personal when you use company assets for personal entertainment? Is it personal when your leadership creates legal liability for sexual harassment? Our lawyers are already reviewing our position." Another deadline. Marcus felt sweat beading on his forehead despite the ballroom's air conditioning. This wasn't just a bad night. This was an unfolding catastrophe. By the time he made it to his car, Marcus had fielded 11 phone calls, each a variation of the same theme: panic, anger, and threats to pull funding. His hands shook uncontrollably as he fumbled with the key, trying to start the engine. Arriving home, the house felt different, empty despite its opulent furnishings. Simone's car was gone, but her presence lingered everywhere. In the meticulously arranged throw pillows she had fluffed that morning, in the coffee mug she had left by the sink, in the pregnancy vitamins lined up on the kitchen counter, a poignant reminder of the future he had so carelessly discarded. Marcus poured himself 3 fingers of scotch, desperate for a moment of clarity. This was manageable, he told himself. Simone was emotional, pregnant, not thinking clearly. He had built $1 billion company from nothing. He could certainly handle one angry wife. His phone buzzed with a text message from Rebecca. "Saw the news. Are you okay?" Marcus stared at the message. Rebecca, the secretary he had fired a week ago, reaching out, now felt pathetic, a hollow echo of a sordid past. He deleted the message without responding. The local news came on at 11, and Marcus watched in horror as the anchor led with his story. Billionaire businessman Marcus Thompson was publicly confronted by his pregnant wife tonight at a high-profile investor event. Simone Thompson announced her pregnancy and intention to divorce, citing multiple affairs while cameras rolled and investors watched. They had footage, raw, unedited footage of Simone's announcement, of investors fleeing the ballroom, of his own face cracking as his world collapsed in real time. The scandal has already impacted Thompson Industries' stock price, which fell 12% in after-hours trading. Several major investors have called emergency meetings, and employment lawyers are predicting significant legal challenges for the company. 12% in one night. Marcus did a quick, frantic calculation in his head. That was over $100 million in value. Evaporated. His phone rang again, his assistant, working late as always. "Mr. Thompson, I've had 47 calls from reporters in the past 2 hours. The Business Journal wants a statement. Channel 7 is planning to run a feature story. And sir," she paused, her voice trembling slightly, "3 employees have already filed complaints with HR about a hostile work environment. They're claiming your relationships with Rebecca and others made them uncomfortable." Marcus hung up and poured another drink. At midnight, his lawyer called. "Marcus, I've been watching the news. We need to talk." "Can this wait until morning?" Marcus pleaded, exhaustion heavy in his voice. "No, it can't. I've also been contacted by Robert Chin. He's representing your wife, and he's very good at what he does." "What does that mean?" "It means you're in trouble. The prenup won't protect you if she can prove you violated the marriage contract through adultery. And based on what she said tonight, she has documentation." "She's bluffing, is she?" Marcus's lawyer's voice was grim. "Chin doesn't bluff. He destroys people for a living, and he's very expensive. Your wife didn't hire him to get a fair settlement, Marcus. She hired him to ruin you." The reality was starting to sink in, cold and sharp. This wasn't just a marital spat that would blow over. Simone hadn't acted impulsively. She had planned this attack with military precision. "What do I do?" Marcus asked, his voice hollow. "Damage control. Issue a public apology. Announce you're stepping back from day-to-day operations. Get into marriage counseling immediately and make it public. Show that you're taking responsibility." "I'm not stepping back from my own company," Marcus exclaimed, a flicker of his old arrogance returning. "Then you might lose it entirely, Marcus. Listen to me carefully. Your wife just declared war, and she chose her battlefield perfectly. Every investor in that room tonight sees you as a liability now. They're not just worried about your marriage, they're worried about lawsuits, bad publicity, and their own reputations being tied to yours. After the lawyer hung up, Marcus sat in his empty house, trying to process the magnitude of what had happened. This morning, he had been a successful CEO with a beautiful wife and a baby on the way. Tonight, he was a public scandal whose marriage was over and whose business was in free fall. He thought about calling Simone, but what would he say? That he was sorry? He had tried that a week ago, and she had looked at him like he was a stranger. His phone buzzed with notifications, Twitter mentions, news alerts, missed calls. The story was spreading beyond business news into general media. #Thompson Scandal was already trending, a brutal hashtag defining his public identity. Marcus scrolled through the tweets, each one a fresh knife to his chest. Pregnant wife announces divorce at husband's business event. Iconic. When keeping it real goes wrong, Marcus Thompson just lost his wife and his investors in one night. Plot twist, wife has receipts, literal receipts. But it was the business publications that truly worried him. Forbes had already published a think piece titled, "When Personal Conduct Becomes Business Risk, the Thompson Industries Case Study." The Wall Street Journal was running quotes from corporate governance experts about fiduciary responsibility and character. At 2:00 in the morning, Marcus tried to sleep, but found himself staring at the ceiling. Simone's side of the bed still smelled faintly of her perfume. The pregnancy test was still sitting on her nightstand, a poignant reminder of what he had destroyed. He thought about the first time he had met her at a conference where she was presenting research on sustainable business practices. She had been brilliant, passionate, beautiful. He had pursued her for months before she agreed to go out with him. Their early years had been magical. She had believed in his vision for Thompson Industries when no one else would. She had worked alongside him, managing their finances so carefully that every dollar went back into growing the business. She had been his partner in every sense of the word. When had that stopped being enough? When had he started looking at other women and seeing excitement instead of commitment? Marcus realized he didn't have a good answer. The affairs had started gradually. A flirtation here, a dinner there, eventually escalating to full-blown relationships. He had told himself it was stress relief, that it didn't mean anything, that Simone would never find out. But looking back now, he could see the pattern. Every time Simone had asked about working late, every time she had suggested they spend more time together, every time she had talked about starting a family, he had pulled away. He had chosen the easy gratification of affairs over the challenging work of maintaining his marriage. And now, she was going to make him pay for every single betrayal. His phone rang one more time. The caller ID showed his father's number. "Dad, I saw the news. Son, what the hell have you done?" Of all the phone calls that night, this one hurt the most. His father had built the family construction business with his bare hands, working 16-hour days and never missing one of Marcus's baseball games. He had taught Marcus that a man's word was his bond, that integrity was paramount. "Dad, I can explain—" "Can you? Can you explain why you threw away a good woman and a successful business for what, exactly? Can you explain why your pregnant wife had to humiliate you in public before you'd take responsibility for your actions?" Marcus had no answer. "You know what your grandfather used to say? Character is what you do when nobody's watching. Well, we're all watching now, son, and we don't like what we see." The line went dead, leaving Marcus alone with the wreckage of his reputation and the growing, horrifying realization that tomorrow would be even worse than tonight. Chin's office buzzed with activity at 8:00 in the morning. Simone sat in the conference room, surrounded by neatly organized piles of legal documents, bank statements, and printed emails. 3 paralegals worked diligently, categorizing the overwhelming evidence. She had spent the night at Lisa's house, finally getting her first good sleep in weeks, a sense of quiet calm settling over her. "Mrs. Thompson, I need you to look at these employment records," said Jennifer, one of Chin's sharp associates. "We've identified 12 current and former female employees who might have been involved with your husband." Simone scanned the list, recognizing some names, others a complete surprise. "Melissa from Human Resources? She's married." "Affairs don't always respect marriage vows," Chin said dryly as he entered the room, his eyes assessing Simone. Good morning, Simone. How are you feeling after last night? Like I can breathe again, she replied, a genuine smile gracing her lips. Good, because Marcus's team filed an emergency motion this morning. They want to freeze all joint assets and get a gag order to prevent you from discussing the case publicly. Simone felt a chill. Can they do that? They can try, but they made a tactical error. By filing so quickly, they look desperate, and the gag order request actually helps our case. It suggests they're more worried about public embarrassment than legal proceedings. Chin pulled up a chair beside her, his expression serious. I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before answering. Are you prepared for this to get ugly? Marcus has resources, and he's going to use them. What do you mean? Simone asked, bracing herself. Private investigators looking into your background, attempts to discredit your character, pressure on your friends and family. When cornered, men like Marcus don't fight fair. Simone thought about the credit card statements spread across the table, each one documenting another betrayal. He's been fighting dirty for 3 years, she stated, her voice firm. I'm just changing the rules. At that moment, Chin's phone rang. He listened for a moment, then smiled grimly. That was my contact at Channel 7. Marcus held a press conference this morning. He turned on the television. Marcus stood outside Thompson Industries headquarters, looking haggard despite his expensive suit. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his usually perfectly coiffed hair was disheveled. I want to address the events of last night, Marcus said, his voice lacking its usual confidence, a stark contrast to his gala performance. My wife is going through a difficult time with her pregnancy, and emotions are running high. While we are having marital difficulties, I don't believe public forums are the appropriate place to resolve private matters. Mr. Thompson, a reporter called out, is it true that you had affairs with multiple employees? I'm not going to discuss my personal life in detail, but I will say that I take full responsibility for any mistakes I've made in my marriage. What about the impact on your investors? Thompson Industries remains strong and profitable. My personal situation will not affect our business operations or our expansion plans. Simone watched her husband deflect and dodge, never actually denying the affairs, never apologizing directly. It was vintage Marcus, all polish, no substance. He's making it worse, Chin observed, a slight shake of his head. Every non-denial confirms your story. The press conference ended with Marcus refusing to take more questions. As he walked away, Simone could see the strain in his posture, the way his shoulders sagged when he thought the cameras weren't watching. Now for the fun part, Chin said, turning off the television. His lawyers will want to negotiate. They'll offer you a settlement to avoid a public trial. I don't want his money, Simone said, her voice firm. Yes, you do. You just don't want it to look like you want it. Chin leaned forward, his gaze direct. Simone, I understand your anger, but you're having a baby. You need to think about your child's future. The prenup has loopholes, big ones. Marcus was so focused on protecting his business assets that he didn't properly define marital property. Every credit card charge, every company expense he used for personal purposes, every asset purchased during your marriage, it's all potentially divisible. Chin pulled out a calculator. Thompson Industries is valued at approximately $1.2 billion. You helped build that company. You managed the household finances that allowed him to reinvest every dollar. You attended business functions, entertained clients, supported his career at the expense of your own. What are you saying? Simone asked, a dawning realization spreading across her face. I'm saying we might be looking at a settlement in the hundreds of millions, maybe more. The number hit Simone like a physical force. She had known Marcus was wealthy, but she had never really contemplated the specific dollar amounts involved. But here's the thing, Chin continued, sensing her shock. The money is just leverage. What you really want is for him to face consequences for what he did. Money alone won't give you that satisfaction. He was right. Simone didn't want to get rich off her divorce. She wanted Marcus to understand what it felt like to lose everything you'd worked for, to have people you trusted turn away from you, to face the very real, very public consequences of his choices. What do you recommend? She asked, her voice firm once more. We accept whatever reasonable settlement he offers, with conditions. He has to publicly admit to the affairs. He has to step down as CEO of Thompson Industries. He has to attend counseling and anger management, and most importantly, he has to agree to supervised visitation with your child until they turn 18. You think he'll agree to that? Simone asked, a flicker of doubt in her voice. Let's find out. His lawyer wants to meet this afternoon. 3 hours later, Simone sat across from Marcus's legal team in Chin's conference room. Marcus himself wasn't there, a tactical decision that spoke volumes about how serious the situation had become. David Sterling, Marcus's lawyer, was everything Simone had expected. Expensive suit, perfect teeth, and the kind of arrogant confidence that came from winning ugly cases for wealthy clients. Miss Thompson, Sterling began, his voice smooth and condescending. My client wants to resolve this matter quickly and quietly. He's prepared to offer you $5 million in cash, plus the house and full custody of your child. Chin didn't even look up from his legal pad, coolly interjecting. Counteroffer, $50 million in cash, half ownership of Thompson Industries, and supervised visitation only. Sterling laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound. That's ridiculous. The prenup clearly states, the prenup becomes void if your client violated the marriage contract through adultery and misuse of marital assets. Chin finished for him, sliding a thick folder across the table. Credit card statements showing 3 years of affairs funded with community property, email evidence of sexual relationships with employees, documentation of a pattern of behavior that created legal liability for Thompson Industries. And Sterling opened the folder and scanned the documents, his confident expression faltering as the sheer volume and damning nature of the evidence became clear. Even if some of these charges are inappropriate, he said carefully, they hardly amount to $50 million. You're right, Chin agreed, a knowing smirk playing on his lips. They probably amount to much more. Mrs. Thompson contributed to the building of Thompson Industries. She managed household finances, attended business functions, entertained clients. Her labor and support enabled your client to build his fortune. In California, that makes her entitled to half of everything. We'll take this to trial. Please do, Chin retorted, his voice dripping with challenge. I look forward to questioning your client under oath about his affair with Rebecca Martinez in his office, about the weekend he spent with Jennifer Collins at the Four Seasons, while telling his wife he was at a business conference, about the company credit cards he used to buy jewelry for mistresses. Sterling's jaw tightened, the smugness completely gone. What exactly do you want? Chin listed his demands. The money, the business stake, the supervised visitation, the public admissions, the resignation from the CEO position. Impossible! Marcus would never agree to step down from his own company, Sterling blustered. Then he can explain to a jury why he thinks cheating on his pregnant wife qualifies him to lead a business that depends on investor trust, Chin replied, his voice calm and lethal. Sterling, defeated, gathered his papers. I need to discuss this with my client. After they left, Simone felt emotionally drained. Is this what the whole process will be like? She asked Chin, weary. This was just the opening round, Chin said, a glint in his eye. Sterling is good, but he's fighting a losing battle. Marcus put himself in an impossible position when he mixed his personal misconduct with business assets. Chin's phone buzzed with a text message. He read it and smiled. What? Simone asked, sensing new developments. 3 more investors just called emergency board meetings, and the SEC is opening an investigation into whether Marcus misused company funds for personal expenses. The SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. If they find evidence that he used shareholder money for his affairs, he could face federal charges. Simone felt a mix of satisfaction and uncertainty. She had wanted Marcus to face consequences, but the scope of what was happening was far larger than she had imagined. Chin, am I doing the right thing? She asked, a flicker of doubt. He looked at her seriously. What's the alternative? Let him get away with it? Teach your child that promises don't matter and actions don't have consequences? She thought about the baby growing inside her, about the kind of world she wanted to bring her child into. No, she said firmly. He needs to learn that his actions have consequences. Then we keep fighting. Outside Chin's office, Simone stood on the sidewalk and looked up at the Thompson Industries building across the street. Through the windows, she could see people moving around, working, building their careers in the company she had helped create. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. Marcus stood in his office at 3 in the morning, staring at financial projections that no longer made sense. Thompson Industries had lost 28% of its value in 3 days. Major investors were demanding emergency meetings. The board of directors had scheduled a vote of no confidence. And Simone's settlement demands sat on his desk like a death sentence. $50 million, half his company, supervised visitation with his own child, public admission of adultery, resignation as CEO. He swept the papers off his desk in a moment of impotent rage, then immediately got down on his hands and knees to collect them, these documents representing his entire future. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Saw the news? Karma's a bitch. It was Jennifer. Marcus deleted it without responding. Jennifer Collins from the marketing firm had been contacting him since the scandal broke, alternately offering sympathy and making veiled threats about what she might tell reporters. All his former mistresses were coming out of the woodwork now, sensing opportunity or revenge, a vulture's feast. Another text, this one from Rebecca. Need to talk. Meet me at our usual place. Marcus stared at the message. Their usual place was a hotel bar downtown, where they had met dozens of times during their affair. The thought of seeing Rebecca now made his stomach turn, but he also felt desperately alone, craving any human contact that wasn't hostile. An hour later, Marcus sat in the darkened corner of the Meridian Hotel bar, nursing a whiskey and waiting. When Rebecca appeared, she looked different, harder, more calculating. The sweet, submissive secretary was gone, replaced by someone who understood her own power. "You look terrible," she said, sliding into the booth across from him, a cruel glint in her eyes. "Thanks, that helps." Rebecca ordered a martini and studied him with cold eyes. "I've been getting calls from reporters. They want to know about our relationship." Marcus felt ice in his veins. "What are you telling them?" "Nothing yet, but I'm wondering if I should. Rebecca, whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking about how you fired me the day your wife caught us, how you threw me away like garbage to protect yourself. I had to. Simone demanded it. And what about what I demanded? 3 years of my life, Marcus. 3 years of believing you when you said you were going to leave her. 3 years of being your secret while she got to be your wife." Marcus reached across the table, but Rebecca pulled her hand away. "I'm not here for reconciliation," she said, her voice sharp. "I'm here to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" "Chin's people approached me yesterday. They want me to testify about our relationship, about the times we used your office, your company credit cards, your business trips." "You can't. There are confidentiality agreements that protect company secrets." "Not your personal misconduct. My lawyer says I'm free to discuss anything that doesn't involve proprietary business information." Rebecca sipped her martini, letting the threat hang in the air, a silent ultimatum. "What do you want?" Marcus asked, his voice strained. $5 million, in exchange for my silence." $5 million? That's insane." "Is it? Because my testimony could cost you a lot more than that. I kept copies of everything, Marcus. Emails, photos, hotel receipts, everything your wife's lawyer would need to prove his case." Marcus felt trapped. Rebecca was right. Her testimony could destroy him. But $5 million would drain his liquid assets at a time when he needed every dollar to save his company. "I need time to think." "You have 24 hours. After that, I'm calling Chin back." Rebecca finished her drink and stood up. "You know what the funny thing is? I actually loved you. I thought what we had was real." "It was real," Marcus protested weakly. "No, Marcus. It was convenient for both of us, but now it's going to cost you everything." She walked away, leaving Marcus alone with his whiskey and the growing realization that his past was catching up with him in ways he hadn't anticipated. The next morning brought worse news. His assistant handed him a stack of legal documents as he arrived at the office. 3 more lawsuits," she said grimly. "Sexual harassment claims from former employees, and the state attorney general wants to interview you about misuse of corporate funds." Marcus closed his office door and called his lawyer. "David, this is spiraling out of control. I warned you this would happen. Your wife's strategy is working perfectly. She's created a feeding frenzy where everyone sees you as vulnerable." "What about the settlement? Can we negotiate it down?" "Not from a position of strength. Every day this drags on, more people come forward with claims against you. The board is losing confidence, investors are fleeing, and now you have potential criminal exposure. Marcus slumped in his chair. So what do I do? You could try talking to Simone directly, woman to woman, father to mother, appeal to her emotional side. She won't see me. Then you need to make her see you. That evening, Marcus drove to Lisa's house, where Simone had been staying since the night of the gala. He sat in his car for 20 minutes, working up the courage to knock on the door. When Lisa answered, her expression was pure disgust, a silent condemnation. She doesn't want to see you, Lisa stated flatly. Lisa, please, I just need 5 minutes. She's carrying my child. Your child? Funny how you started caring about that after she left you. Marcus could see Simone through the window, sitting on the couch, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. She looked beautiful and peaceful, more relaxed than he had seen her in months, a stark contrast to his own torment. Simone, he called out, his voice hoarse with desperation. Please, just 5 minutes. She looked up, meeting his eyes through the glass. For a moment, Marcus thought she might come to the door. Instead, she got up and walked into another room, silently dismissing him. She's done with you, Marcus, Lisa said, her voice firm. Accept it. I can change. I can be the husband she deserves, the father our child needs. You had 3 years to be that husband. You chose to be something else instead. Lisa started to close the door, but Marcus put his foot in the way. Tell her I'll agree to the settlement, all of it. The money, the company shares, everything. I just want a chance to be a father to my child, even the supervised visitation. Marcus's jaw tightened. The idea of having his own parental rights supervised felt like the ultimate humiliation. But what choice did he have? Even that? Lisa studied his face for a long moment, a flicker of something in her eyes. I'll tell her. But Marcus, don't expect it to change anything. Some things can't be fixed with money. As Marcus drove home, he passed the Thompson Industries building. Security lights illuminated the lobby where he had started his company 8 years ago. Back then, he had been hungry and driven, willing to work 18-hour days to build something lasting. Somewhere along the way, success had made him careless. The company had grown, the money had flowed, and he had started to believe his own press. He had thought he could have everything, the successful business, the perfect wife, and the excitement of affairs on the side. Now he was losing it all, a catastrophic cascade of consequences. His phone rang. Simone's number. Hello, Marcus. Her voice was calm, controlled, utterly devoid of emotion. Lisa told me what you said. Simone, thank God. Can we meet? Can we talk about this? We are talking about it. This phone call is all you get. Marcus pulled over to the side of the road, his heart pounding. I'll sign the settlement. Whatever Chin wants, I just want a chance to be a father. You'll get that chance. Every other weekend, supervised visits until the child turns 16. Simone, please. I know I made mistakes. Mistakes? Marcus, you had an 8-woman rotation. You used our money to buy them gifts. You mocked me to your mistresses. Those weren't mistakes. They were choices. I can change. You can change for someone else, for your next wife, but not for me. Never for me. What about our baby? What am I supposed to tell them about why their parents aren't together? There was a long pause. When Simone spoke again, her voice was softer, but no less firm. I'll tell them the truth. That sometimes people make choices that hurt the people they're supposed to love, and that actions have consequences. Simone, goodbye, Marcus. Have your lawyer call Chin tomorrow. The line went dead. Marcus sat in his car on the side of the road, listening to the sound of his world collapsing around him. In the distance, he could still see the lights of Thompson Industries, the empire he had built and was about to lose half of to the woman he had so casually betrayed. For the first time since this all began, Marcus finally understood what Simone had meant when she said she was going to destroy him. She wasn't just taking his money or his company. She was taking his future. Simone stood in the empty apartment, running her hand along the kitchen counter of what would soon be her new home. The space was bright and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city, a fresh start. More importantly, it was hers, purchased with her own money, free from any connection to Marcus, a tangible symbol of her independence. "What do you think, little one?" she murmured to her growing belly. At 16 weeks, her pregnancy was finally showing, a small bump that made everything feel more real, a tangible future blooming amidst the wreckage of her past. Lisa walked through the living room, arms full of paint samples. "I still think the nursery should be yellow, gender neutral, and it goes with everything." Yellow it is. Simone accepted the samples, though her mind was elsewhere. Tomorrow was the final settlement meeting where Marcus would officially sign away half his empire and accept the humiliating terms that would govern the rest of his relationship with their child. Chin had called that morning with the latest update. Marcus's company had stabilized somewhat after his public resignation as CEO, but the SEC investigation was ongoing. Several former employees had come forward with harassment claims, and Rebecca Martinez was reportedly writing a tell-all book about her affair with the Billionaire CEO, an additional nail in his coffin of reputation. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" Lisa asked, her voice gentle, breaking Simone from her reverie. Simone considered the question. 3 months ago, she would have been terrified at the thought of facing Marcus in a legal setting, the enormity of it overwhelming. Now, she felt something different. Not nervousness, but anticipation, a quiet resolve. Tomorrow would be the end of one bitter chapter and the decisive beginning of another. "I'm ready," she said simply. That evening, Simone drove to her childhood neighborhood to have dinner with her mother, Evelyn. The small house where she had grown up felt different now. Smaller, but somehow more peaceful than the sprawling mansion she had shared with Marcus. "You're glowing," her mother said as they sat down to eat. "Pregnancy suits you." "Everything suits me better without Marcus around," Simone replied, a hint of steel in her voice. Evelyn studied her daughter's face, a flicker of concern in her eyes. "Are you sure you're doing the right thing? I know he hurt you, but he's still the father of your child. Mom, you never liked Marcus. Don't start defending him now." "I'm not defending him. I'm thinking about my grandchild. Children need their fathers." Simone set down her fork, her expression firm. "Our child will have a father, just not one who lives with us. Marcus will have visitation rights, supervised until our child is old enough to make their own decisions about spending time with him." "Supervised visitation seems harsh," Evelyn mused. "He spent 3 years lying to me about where he was and who he was with," Simone countered, her voice unwavering. "Why would I trust him alone with our child?" Evelyn reached across the table and took her daughter's hand, a maternal warmth in her touch. "I'm proud of you, you know, for standing up for yourself, for refusing to accept less than you deserve." "It doesn't feel like bravery," Simone admitted, a tired sigh escaping her lips. "It just feels like survival." "Sometimes those are the same thing," her mother replied, her eyes kind and understanding. After dinner, Simone drove through her old neighborhood, past the high school where she had been valedictorian, past the park where she had dreamed about her future. Those dreams had included marriage and children, but they had been vague about the details. She had imagined a partner who would respect her, support her ambitions, and be faithful to their family. Marcus had seemed like that partner in the beginning, charming, ambitious, successful. He had pursued her with an intensity that felt like love, intoxicating and all-consuming. Their early years had been happy, building the business together, planning their future, believing they were creating something lasting. The betrayal wasn't just about the affairs, Simone realized. It was about the lie their entire marriage had been built on. While she was being loyal and supportive, Marcus was treating their relationship as optional, something he could take for granted while pursuing excitement elsewhere. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw you on the news. You're my hero, going through something similar. Thank you for showing us how to fight back. Sarah." Simone had been getting messages like this for weeks. Women from all over the country sharing their own stories of betrayal and thanking her for standing up publicly. She hadn't intended to become a symbol, a beacon of defiance, but apparently her very public divorce had resonated with countless individuals who felt powerless in their own toxic relationships. The settlement meeting took place in Chin's conference room at 10 Walk the next morning. Marcus arrived with his lawyer and a financial advisor, looking utterly broken, like he hadn't slept in weeks. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, a shadow of the man he once was. Simone felt nothing when she looked at him. No anger, no sadness, no residual love, just a profound emptiness where strong emotions used to live. "Mrs. Thompson," David Sterling began, his voice devoid of its former arrogance, "my client has agreed to all terms of the settlement as outlined." Chin slid the documents across the table, $50 million in cash, 40% ownership of Thompson Industries, the house in Malibu, full custody of their child with supervised visitation rights for Marcus, public admission of adultery, mandatory counseling, and anger management classes. Marcus signed each page mechanically, his hand steady despite the magnitude of what he was giving up, his entire empire crumbling under the weight of his own misdeeds. "There's one additional item," Chin said, his voice cutting through the sterile silence. "Mrs. Thompson wants a public apology, not to her. She doesn't need or want that. To the employees of Thompson Industries who were affected by your conduct." Marcus looked up sharply, a flicker of protest in his eyes. "That wasn't part of the agreement." "It is now," Chin stated, his voice calm but firm. "Non-negotiable." "Fine." Marcus's voice was barely above a whisper. The fight drained out of him. The press conference was held an hour later in the lobby of Thompson Industries. Marcus stood at a podium, reading from a prepared statement while cameras recorded every word, his humiliation televised for the world to see. "I want to publicly apologize to the employees of Thompson Industries who were made uncomfortable by my personal conduct. My behavior created an inappropriate work environment, and I take full responsibility for that. I also want to acknowledge that my actions have consequences that extend beyond my personal life to the people who trusted me to lead this company responsibly." It wasn't the most heartfelt apology Simone had ever heard, but it was public, and it was on the record. Marcus was admitting in front of cameras and reporters that he had behaved inappropriately and created problems for innocent people. As Marcus left the podium, he caught Simone's eye. For a moment, she thought she saw something that might have been regret, or maybe just utter exhaustion. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. That afternoon, Simone signed the paperwork to purchase her new apartment and, crucially, to open her own consulting firm. After years of supporting Marcus's career, she was finally building something for herself, a testament to her own expertise and ambition. Her phone rang as she was leaving the bank. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize. "Mrs. Thompson, this is James Rodriguez from Rodriguez Ventures. I've been following your story in the business press." "How can I help you, Mr. Rodriguez?" Simone asked, a professional curiosity stirring within her. "Actually, I was hoping I could help you. I understand you're starting a consulting firm focused on sustainable business practices. I have several companies in my portfolio that could use that expertise." Simone felt a thrill of excitement. Her first potential client, interested in working with her because of her expertise, not her connection to Marcus. "I'd be very interested in discussing that." "Excellent. And Mrs. Thompson, what you did took courage. The business world needs more people willing to hold leaders accountable for their actions." After the call ended, Simone sat in her car and felt something she hadn't experienced in months: optimism about the future. Her marriage was over. Her husband's betrayal was behind her, and the legal battles were finally resolved. But her life, her real life, was just beginning. She placed her hand on her growing belly and smiled. "Ready for our next adventure?" she asked her unborn child. The baby kicked in response, and Simone took that as a resounding yes. Marcus stood in his empty office, packing the last of his personal belongings into boxes that seemed too small to contain 8 years of work, of ambition, of a once shining future. The walls were bare now, stripped of the awards and photographs that had once proudly proclaimed his success to anyone who entered. Through his window, he could see protesters gathered outside Thompson Industries. They had been there for 3 days, holding signs that read, "Accountability Matters," and "Justice for Working Women." What had started as a business scandal had evolved into something larger, a potent symbol of corporate misconduct and abuse of power, a public outcry against unchecked privilege. His replacement as CEO had been announced that morning. Patricia Williams, the former CFO, who had always been more popular with employees and investors than Marcus ever was. The board had made it clear that this wasn't a temporary arrangement. Marcus's time as the face of Thompson Industries was over, permanently. "Mr. Thompson?" Marcus turned to find Janet, his former assistant, standing in the doorway. She looked uncomfortable but determined, her gaze meeting his with a quiet dignity. "I wanted to return these," she said, holding out his spare office keys and company credit cards, symbols of a power he no longer held. "And to say goodbye." Janet had worked for him for 5 years, meticulously managing his schedule, covering for his frequent absences, and likely knowing more about his affairs than she had ever let on. The thought made him acutely ashamed. "Janet, I want you to know, please don't." Her voice was firm, but not unkind, cutting him off. "We don't need to have that conversation." She set the keys and cards on his empty desk and turned to leave, then paused, a moment of unexpected grace. "For what it's worth, I hope you figure things out, for your child's sake." After she left, Marcus continued packing in silence. The city skyline stretched out before him, but it no longer felt like his domain. Every towering building reminded him of deals he wouldn't close, investors he'd lost, relationships he had carelessly destroyed. His phone buzzed with yet another news alert. This time, it was Rebecca's book announcement. "The Billionaire's Secret: My 3-Year Affair with Marcus Thompson." The publisher was calling it a shocking exposé of power, sex, and betrayal in corporate America. Marcus deleted the alert without reading the details. Rebecca's book was just the latest in a series of humiliating revelations that seemed to multiply daily. 2 more former employees had filed harassment suits. The SEC investigation was expanding, deepening the legal quagmire. And his father had stopped taking his calls altogether, the most painful cut of all. The financial implications were staggering. The settlement with Simone had cost him $50 million in cash and 40% of his company, a significant portion of his wealth. The legal fees were fast approaching another $5 million, a constant hemorrhage of funds. His personal reputation was so irrevocably damaged that finding new investors or business partners seemed utterly impossible. But the money wasn't the worst part. Marcus had discovered something he'd never expected. Being wealthy but despised was far worse than being poor but respected. He drove home to his empty mansion. Simone had taken the Malibu house, leaving him with the sterile, soulless showcase they had bought last year, a house that felt more like a museum than a home. Every room echoed with memories of their marriage, the kitchen where she had made coffee every morning, the bedroom where they had planned their future, the nursery they had started designing before everything fell apart. Marcus poured himself a drink and sat in his living room, staring at a photo that Simone had somehow missed in her packing. It showed them at a charity gala 2 years ago, her arm around his waist, both of them smiling genuinely at the camera. They had looked happy, successful, like they belonged together, a perfect, polished couple. The photo felt like evidence from a crime scene now, a haunting relic of a destroyed past. His doorbell rang, startling him from his thoughts. Through the peephole, he could see a young woman with a microphone and a man with a camera. "Mr. Thompson, this is Ashley Chen from Channel 7 News. We'd like to get your response to the latest sexual harassment allegations." Marcus didn't answer. The reporters had been camping outside his house for days, hoping to catch him in an unguarded moment. He had learned to enter and exit through the garage, avoiding their incessant questions and cameras. But tonight, something inside him snapped. He opened the door. "Mr. Thompson, how do you respond to claims that you created a hostile work environment?" "I respond by saying that I'm a human being who made mistakes," Marcus said, his voice louder than intended, raw and unfiltered. "I'm not a monster. I never forced anyone to do anything. I never threatened anyone's job. I had consensual relationships with adult women." "But these women were your employees," Ashley Chen interjected, her microphone thrust forward. "And they were adults, capable of making their own decisions. Yes, I cheated on my wife. Yes, I used poor judgment. But I'm not the villain everyone wants me to be." Ashley Chen sensed an opportunity, pushing further. "Are you saying the allegations against you are false?" "I'm saying the situation is more complicated than anyone wants to admit. My marriage fell apart. My business is suffering. And everyone acts like I'm the first man in history to have an affair." "What about your pregnant wife? Don't you think she deserved better?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow, punching the air from his lungs. Of course she deserved better. She deserved a husband who appreciated what he had instead of looking for what he didn't have. But that doesn't make me a criminal. Do you regret your actions? Marcus looked directly into the camera for the first time, his eyes full of pain and a dawning, crushing regret. I regret everything. I regret the affairs, the lies, the pain I caused. I regret losing the best woman I've ever known and destroying the family we could have had together. But most of all, I regret that my child will grow up knowing their father as a public failure instead of a private success. He closed the door, leaving the reporters on his doorstep with the most honest statement he had made since the scandal began. The interview aired that night, and Marcus watched himself admit his failures to the entire city. He looked broken on camera, a shell of the confident CEO who had dominated business pages for years. But for the first time in months, he felt a strange sense of catharsis, a relief in having finally told the truth, however painful. His phone rang immediately after the broadcast ended. His mother. "Marcus, I saw the news." "Mom, I'm coming over." Eleanor Thompson arrived an hour later with a casserole and the stern, no-nonsense expression Marcus remembered from childhood. She walked through his empty house, taking in the bare walls and packed boxes with a discerning eye. "You look terrible," she said simply, her voice devoid of pity. "Thanks, Mom. Very helpful." "I'm not here to cuddle you. I'm here because you're my son and you're falling apart." She set the casserole on his kitchen counter and turned to face him, her gaze unwavering. "What you did to Simone was inexcusable, but this public crucifixion has gone far enough." "The public crucifixion is deserved," Marcus replied, his voice flat. "Maybe," she conceded, "but your child doesn't deserve to grow up with a father who's given up on himself." Marcus slumped against the counter, utterly defeated. "I don't know how to come back from this, Mom. Everything I built is gone. Every relationship I had is destroyed. I'm going to be a cautionary tale for the rest of my life." Eleanor studied her son's face, a flicker of something akin to tough love in her eyes. "Your father lost his first business when you were 5 years old. Bad investment, poor partners, economy went south. We lost our house, our savings, everything." Marcus stared at her, stunned. "I never knew that." "Because he didn't give up. He worked construction for 2 years, saved every penny, and started over. Built the company that put you through college and taught you everything you know about business. That's different. He didn't have public scandals. He had something worse. He had genuine failure. Not just bad choices, but he also had something you've forgotten you possess. What's that?" "The ability to start over, to be better than you were before." Eleanor moved toward the door, then paused, her parting words echoing in the vast, empty house. "That baby Simone is carrying. They're going to judge you based on who you become, not who you were. Make sure you give them something to be proud of." After his mother left, Marcus sat alone in his empty house and tried to imagine a future where his child looked at him with respect instead of embarrassment. For the first time since this nightmare began, he started to think about how to rebuild rather than how to desperately defend what was already lost. 6 months after the gala that destroyed their marriage, Marcus stood outside the courthouse where Simone was finalizing the adoption papers for their child's last name change. She had decided the baby would carry her maiden name, Williams, instead of Thompson, another symbolic severing of their connection, a reclaiming of identity. He hadn't spoken to her directly since their tense phone call the night she agreed to the settlement. All communication had gone through layers of lawyers, social workers, and mediators, a sterile and impersonal process. But today, Marcus had to see her, had to try one last time to salvage something from the wreckage of their relationship, to make her understand. Simone emerged from the courthouse at exactly 3 o'clock, her pregnancy now beautifully obvious at 7 months. She looked radiant in a flowing blue dress that emphasized her glowing skin and confident posture, radiating a quiet strength. Marcus felt his heart clench at the sight of her, not with love, but with the deep, aching recognition of everything he had lost, everything he had thrown away. "Simone." She turned at the sound of his voice, her expression carefully neutral, a practiced mask. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" I needed to see you, to talk to you. We have nothing to talk about. Everything was settled months ago. She began walking towards her car, but Marcus fell into step beside her, desperate. Please, 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. The same 5 minutes you asked for at Lisa's house when you promised to sign the settlement if I just gave you a chance. Her voice was a chilling reminder of his past manipulations. This is different. Simone stopped walking and faced him fully for the first time, her eyes piercing. How is it different, Marcus? He looked into her eyes, those same intelligent, compassionate eyes that had first attracted him 5 years ago, and tried to find the words, the genuine truth for what he needed to say. Because I understand now what I did to you, what I threw away, what I lost. I understand it in a way I couldn't before. And what exactly do you understand? She asked, her voice skeptical.
That I didn't just betray you, I betrayed myself. Everything I claimed to value, loyalty, integrity, building something lasting, I threw it all away for momentary gratification.
Simone adjusted her purse on her shoulder, a gesture Marcus recognized as her preparing to leave, a finality he dreaded. I'm glad you've had that revelation, but it doesn't change anything between us. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness or reconciliation. I'm asking for the chance to be a better father than I was a husband. You'll get that chance. Every other weekend, just like we agreed. Supervised visitation until they're 16. Do you know what that means, Simone? It means my own child won't be allowed to stay overnight with me for the first 16 years of their life, he exclaimed, the injustice of it burning him. It means exactly what it says. You'll have visits with a court-appointed supervisor present to ensure the child's safety and well-being. Marcus felt frustration rising in his chest. I never hurt you physically. I never threatened you or put you in danger. Why are you punishing our child for my mistakes? Simone's carefully controlled expression cracked slightly, a flash of righteous anger. Punishing our child? Marcus, you spent 3 years lying to me about where you were and who you were with. You had affairs with women you worked with, women I considered friends. You used our money to buy them gifts while I managed our household budget down to the penny. I know all that, he protested, his voice desperate. Do you? Do you really understand what it means to live with someone who lies constantly? To second-guess every story, every explanation, every reason they give for being late or distracted or emotionally distant? She stepped closer to him, her voice growing more intense, cutting through his self-pity. You didn't just cheat on me, Marcus. You made me doubt my own instincts. Every time something felt wrong, you had an explanation that made me feel crazy for questioning you. You gaslighted me for 3 years. The word hit Marcus like a physical blow. I never meant... Of course you never meant to. You never mean to hurt anyone, but you do it anyway because your needs matter more than other people's pain. Marcus felt his own anger rising, a defensive reflex. So that's it? I'm condemned forever? No chance at redemption? No possibility of change? For our marriage, yes, you're condemned forever. I will never trust you again, never love you again, never believe another word you say about commitment or faithfulness. And for our child, Simone's hand moved instinctively to her belly, a protective gesture. Our child will have the chance to form their own relationship with you, under supervision, with appropriate boundaries, and with the understanding that trust has to be earned. 16 years of supervised visits? That's not a relationship, that's a punishment. No, Marcus, it's a consequence. And if you spend half as much energy accepting responsibility as you do feeling sorry for yourself, you might actually become someone worthy of unsupervised time with our child. They stood facing each other in the courthouse parking lot, 8 months of anger and betrayal and legal warfare crystallizing in this moment of brutal honesty, of absolute clarity. I've lost everything, Marcus said quietly, the raw truth in his voice. My company, my reputation, my family. What more do you want from me? I don't want anything from you anymore, Simone replied, her voice firm. That's the point you keep missing. Simone reached into her purse and pulled out a small ultrasound photo. The baby is healthy, a girl. I thought you should know. Marcus took the photo with shaking hands. The image was black and white and grainy, but he could make out the profile of a tiny face, a small hand raised near her mouth. A daughter, he whispered. a profound sense of loss washing over him. Her name will be Emma Grace Williams. She'll know who her father is, but she won't carry the burden of your reputation. Marcus stared at the ultrasound, trying to process that this tiny person would be his child, but would never truly be his family in the way he had once envisioned. Will you send me updates? Photos as she grows up? The court will handle all communication regarding Emma. If you want updates, you can request them through your lawyer. Simone, please. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but she's my daughter too. For the first time in their conversation, Simone's expression softened slightly, a flicker of empathy, or perhaps just a weary understanding of his pain. Marcus, I'm going to give you some advice, and I want you to really hear it. He nodded, desperate for guidance. Stop fighting the consequences of your actions and start accepting them. Stop trying to minimize what you did and start taking full responsibility for it. And most importantly, stop trying to get forgiveness from me and start working on becoming someone who deserves it from Emma. She started walking toward her car again, the distance between them growing. The supervised visits start after she's born. Use that time to become the father she deserves, not to relitigate the past or negotiate for more access. Simone, wait. She turned back one final time, her gaze meeting his. I loved you. I know you don't believe that anymore, but I did love you. I just didn't know how to love you without sabotaging everything we built together. Simone looked at him for a long moment, and Marcus thought he saw a flicker of the woman who had once believed in him, the woman he had loved, in his own flawed way. I know you think you loved me, Marcus, but what you felt wasn't love. It was possession. You loved having me, owning me, being able to count on me while you did whatever you wanted. She opened her car door and paused, her final words hanging in the air. Real love puts the other person's well-being above your own desires. Real love makes sacrifices. Real love doesn't hedge its bets with other people. I can learn to love that way, he pleaded, a desperate hope in his voice. Maybe you can, but you'll have to learn with someone else. Simone got in her car and drove away, leaving Marcus standing alone in the parking lot with an ultrasound photo of the daughter he would know but never truly have. As he watched her taillights disappear, Marcus finally understood what Simone had meant months ago when she said she was going to destroy him. She hadn't destroyed his business or his reputation or his wealth. She had destroyed his ability to pretend that his actions didn't have devastating consequences for the people who loved him. And somehow, in that brutal, inescapable truth that felt like the beginning of something new, rather than the end of everything he had known. 2 years after Emma Grace Williams was born, Simone stood in the sleek conference room of her consulting firm, presenting a sustainability strategy to the board of directors of one of the city's largest corporations. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see the Thompson Industries building in the distance, a gleaming tower, now under new leadership and thriving under Patricia Williams' guidance. It was a testament to resilience, both corporate and personal. The environmental initiatives we're proposing will reduce your carbon footprint by 30% while actually increasing profitability, Simone explained, clicking through meticulously prepared charts and projections on the large screen. Sustainable business practices aren't just about corporate responsibility anymore. They're about competitive advantage, about future-proofing your business. The board members nodded approvingly, several taking notes on her specific recommendations. Simone's firm had grown rapidly over the past 2 years, built not just on her exceptional expertise, but also on the quiet, unshakable reputation she had gained for standing up to corporate misconduct, for her integrity and resolve. Business leaders, increasingly aware of the public's scrutiny and the demands for ethical leadership, wanted to work with someone who understood both the importance of success and the profound cost of ethical failures. After the meeting ended successfully, another major contract signed, Simone drove to the daycare to pick up Emma. At 18 months old, her daughter was walking, talking, and already showing signs of the same fierce curiosity and determination that had driven Simone throughout her own life. "Mama!" Emma ran toward her on unsteady legs, dark curls bouncing and arms outstretched, her face lighting up with pure joy. Simone scooped her up, breathing in the sweet scent of baby shampoo, feeling the familiar surge of fierce love that motherhood had brought into her life. Everything she had endured, the betrayal, the public humiliation, the difficult pregnancy and delivery, had been worth it for this perfect, vibrant little person. "How was your day, sweet girl?" "I painted. Blue flowers." Emma held up hands that were still slightly stained with washable paint, a proud grin on her face. "Blue flowers are my favorite," Simone said, settling Emma into her car seat, her heart full. "Should we go see Grandma before dinner?" "Grandma," Emma chirped, already anticipating the visit. They drove to Evelyn's house, where Emma would spend the evening while Simone attended a charity gala. These events were different now. Simone went as herself, a respected professional, not as someone's wife, and she chose causes that genuinely mattered to her rather than fulfilling obligations that merely served someone else's business interests. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," Evelyn said as Simone prepared to leave, giving her an approving once-over. The black dress was elegant, understated, yet powerful, not flashy, but not severe. Simone had learned to dress for her own success, to reflect her own identity, rather than to complement someone else's image. "Thanks, Mom. I shouldn't be too late." "Take your time. Emma and I have big plans involving ice cream and bedtime stories," Evelyn replied, winking at her granddaughter. The gala was being held at the very same hotel where Marcus had announced his business expansion 2 years ago, but the ballroom felt completely different now. It was no longer a stage for a deceptive performance, but a space filled with genuine connection and purpose. Simone moved through the crowd with confidence, greeting business associates, potential clients, and friends she had made in her new life, a life she had meticulously crafted. "Simone!" She turned to find David Chin approaching, a tall, handsome man she didn't recognize at his side. "I want you to meet Dr. James Mitchell," Chin said, his voice warm with genuine pleasure. "He runs the children's hospital where this gala is raising funds. James, this is Simone Williams, the sustainability consultant I was telling you about." James Mitchell had kind eyes and an easy smile that reached all the way to his face, a natural warmth that immediately put her at ease. His handshake was firm but not aggressive, confident but not dominating, a stark contrast to the performative bravado she had grown accustomed to. "Ms. Williams, it's a pleasure. David tells me you're working on some innovative projects around sustainable healthcare practices." "I am," Simone replied, a genuine enthusiasm in her voice. "Healthcare facilities have enormous potential for environmental impact reduction, especially in energy usage and waste management. I'd love to hear more about that. Would you be interested in having coffee sometime? I think our hospital could benefit greatly from your expertise." Simone found herself smiling, a genuine, unforced smile. "I'd like that." They exchanged business cards, and Simone felt something she hadn't experienced in years, genuine interest in getting to know someone new. Not because she needed anything from him, not because he represented security or status, but simply because he seemed like someone truly worth knowing, a person of substance. As the evening continued, Simone found herself in conversation with James several more times. He was intelligent without being condescending, successful without being arrogant. And he talked about his work with a passion that reminded her why she had chosen her own career path, why she was dedicated to making a difference. "Can I ask you something?" James said, as the gala was winding down, his voice warm and direct. "Are you seeing anyone?" The direct question, devoid of games or subtlety, caught Simone off guard, but pleasantly so. "No, I'm not, but I should mention that I have a daughter. She's 18 months old." "That's wonderful. Children are amazing," he replied, his smile unwavering. "You have kids?" "Not yet, but I'd like to someday, with the right person." Simone studied his face, looking for any signs of the charm and calculation she had learned to recognize in Marcus, the manipulative tells that spoke of ulterior motives. Instead, she saw only genuine interest and the kind of straightforward honesty she had almost forgotten existed in men. "I'd like to have that coffee," she said, her smile widening. "Great! How about tomorrow afternoon?" "Perfect." As Simone drove home, she thought about the conversation with James and realized she felt excited about the possibility of dating again. Not because she needed a man to complete her life, but because she had built a life so full and satisfying that sharing it with someone seemed appealing rather than necessary. She was whole on her own, and that made any potential connection even more meaningful. At her mother's house, she found Emma asleep in the guest bedroom, curls spread across the pillow, and one small hand clutching a stuffed elephant. Simone carefully transferred her daughter to the car seat without waking her, then drove to their own home, a comfortable house in a good neighborhood, purchased with her own money and decorated to her own taste, a sanctuary of peace and independence. As she tucked Emma into her crib, Simone's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus's lawyer. Mr. Thompson's next supervised visit with Emma is scheduled for this Saturday at 2 p.m. Please confirm. Simone confirmed the appointment automatically. Marcus had been consistent with his visits over the past year, showing up every other weekend and spending 2 hours with Emma under the watchful eye of a court-appointed supervisor. The visits were still awkward and formal, a stark reminder of their fractured family, but Marcus was trying to build a relationship with their daughter within the constraints of the arrangement. According to the supervisor's reports, Marcus was gentle with Emma, reading to her and playing simple games. He never missed a visit, never showed up late, and never tried to circumvent the rules. He was, by all accounts, making a genuine effort to be a good father within the limited time he was allowed. Simone felt no satisfaction in Marcus's difficulties, no lingering desire for his continued suffering, but she also felt no desire to make things easier for him. Emma's safety and well-being came first, and trust, once shattered, had to be earned over time through consistent, reliable behavior. Saturday afternoon, Simone watched from the parking lot as Marcus arrived for his visit. He looked older, more tired, but also somehow more grounded than the man she had been married to. Success and failure had both taught him harsh lessons, and he seemed to be slowly, painfully learning them. Through the window of the family services building, she could see Marcus sitting on the floor with Emma, helping her build towers with colorful blocks, a simple act of paternal connection. Emma was comfortable with him now, no longer crying when Simone left or clinging when she returned. Simone's phone rang. It was James Mitchell. "Hi," she said, smiling despite herself, a lightness in her voice. "Hi, I was wondering if you might be free for dinner tomorrow night instead of coffee this afternoon. I know it's short notice, but I just found out about a new restaurant that specializes in farm-to-table cuisine, and I thought you might appreciate their sustainability practices." "Oh, that sounds perfect. I'd love to." "Great. I'll pick you up at 7. Actually, would you mind meeting me there? I have a daughter, and I like to arrange my own transportation for first dates." "Of course, that's very sensible." After they hung up, Simone sat in her car and marveled at how different this felt from dating Marcus. There was no pressure, no game playing, no sense that she needed to be anyone other than herself to keep his interest. This was a genuine connection, built on mutual respect and shared values. 2 hours later, Marcus emerged from the building with Emma in his arms. The supervisor walked beside them, making notes on her clipboard. Marcus looked reluctant to end the visit, but he handled the goodbye appropriately, giving Emma a gentle hug and telling her he would see her soon. "Mama!" Emma ran toward Simone's car as soon as she spotted it, a burst of energetic joy. "Did you have fun with Daddy?" Simone asked as she buckled Emma into her car seat. "Blocks, big tower." "That sounds wonderful." As they drove home, Simone caught Marcus's eye in the rearview mirror. He was standing by his car, watching them leave, and for a moment, she felt something that might have been sympathy. Not regret for divorcing him, but a quiet sadness for the family they might have been if he had made different choices. But that family had been built on lies and betrayal. The family she was building now, with Emma, with her burgeoning career, with the possibility of new, healthy love, was built on truth and choice and the hard-won knowledge of her own immense worth. That evening, Simone put Emma to bed and sat in her living room with a cup of tea, looking through the portfolio of her business achievements over the past 2 years. She had built something significant from nothing, created jobs for other people, and made a tangible, positive impact on the world. More importantly, she had raised a healthy, happy child and created a life filled with people who respected and valued her for who she truly was. Tomorrow night she would have dinner with a man who seemed genuinely interested in knowing her as she really was. Next week, she would present another proposal to another board of directors. Next month, she would attend Emma's second birthday party, surrounded by friends and family who loved them both unconditionally. It wasn't the life she had planned when she married Marcus, but it was profoundly better. It was hers, earned through courage and built on the unshakable foundation of knowing she could survive anything, conquer any challenge. Simone Williams had risen from the ashes of her marriage, stronger, wiser, and more powerful than she had ever imagined possible, and she was just getting started. This story is a powerful reminder that while betrayal can shatter your world, it doesn't have to define your future. Simone's journey illustrates that true strength isn't just about endurance, but about strategic action, self-respect, and the courage to rebuild on your own terms. It teaches us that consequences, though sometimes delayed, are inevitable, especially when personal ethics collide with public responsibility. Ultimately, it's a beacon of hope for anyone who has ever felt diminished by another's actions, proving that you can reclaim your narrative, forge your own path, and build a life more authentic and fulfilling than anything you could have imagined before. Your worth is not determined by those who betray you, but by your unwavering commitment to your own truth and your unwavering belief in your capacity to rise again.